The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now justice had come full circle, thought the king, back to the merchant. When he was rudely summoned back to the court, he arrived crying, "It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead. I am innocent." But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. "It is true that your father is a true murderer. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. I knew at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die." The goldsmith said that the merchant was the same merchant whose house wall had fallen down. Justice has come full circle means that the story ended at the same person from whom it had started. The thief died under the wall of the same merchant whose jewelry goldsmith was making. Once again the merchant was called. He was crying, and he knew that the king was foolish and he would give him death sentence. He said that it was not he who had ordered the jewelry, but it was his father. His father was dead, and it was none of his fault. The king consulted his minister and gave the decision that the merchant's father was the murderer. The thief died because of him, as the merchant's father was not alive and someone had to be punished for the crime. So he said that the merchant's son, who had inherited everything from his father, would have to take the punishment for his wrongdoing as well. He added that when he had seen the merchant for the first time, at that moment he had a feeling that he was the culprit. The king announced that now the merchant would have to die. And he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. He appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. When this new weapon was getting ready, the minister felt that the merchant was very thin and he could not be executed in this way. He told the king this thing, and the king now got worried. "What shall we do?" he said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. The king got an idea that they should catch hold of a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. The merchant would not be put to death because he was too thin to be executed with the stake. They thought of punishing another person instead of the merchant, one who was fat enough to be executed. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on banana and rice and wheat and ghee. Finally, the king sent his servants around the kingdom to look for a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. They found the Guru's disciple who had become very fat because of overeating. "What have I done wrong? I am innocent. I am a sannyasi," he cried. "That may be true, but it is the royal decree that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake," they said, and carried him to the place of execution. The disciple said that he was a sannyasi. He had not done anything wrong. He was innocent. Then why were they taking him? The king's servants said that he was innocent, but they were ordered to catch hold of a fat man who could be executed with the stake, and he was fit for it, and that is why they were taking him along. While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his Guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The Guru saw everything in a vision. He had magic powers. He could see far, and he could see the future as he could see the present and the past. Now the disciple, he was reminded of his Guru. Guruji, who was a wise man, had told him that it was a city of fools and they could harm him. Now they were taking him along to execute him. The helpless disciple prayed to his Guru and asked him to come to his rescue. The Guru could visualize the disciple's message due to his magical power. He could see everything. He could see the future, the present, and the past. He could see everything in vision. The Guru arrived at once to save his disciple, who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food. The Guru arrived there to save his disciple. The disciple was trapped in a difficult and serious situation. They were about to execute him, although he had done nothing wrong. So the Guru came to rescue him from this situation. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him, "O wisest of king, who is greater, the Guru or the disciple?" "Of course, the Guru, no doubt about it. Why do you ask?" "Then put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me." As the Guru met his disciple, he scolded him because he did not obey him and stayed back. He whispered something in his ear. Then the Guru went to the king and tried to trap him in his words. He asked him who was greater between a Guru and a disciple. The king replied that of course the Guru was greater. The Guru said that for this reason the king must execute him before executing his disciple. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor, "Me first, you brought me here first. Put me to death first, not him." The Guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled by his behavior. He asked the Guru, "Why do you want to die? We choose him because we needed a fat man for the stake." "You shouldn't ask me some such questions. Put me to death first," replied the Guru. "Why? There's some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand." When the disciple heard his Guru's words, he started shouting that he wanted to die first. When the Guru and disciple started arguing that who would die first, the king got confused. He asked the Guru that why did he want to die. They had caught the disciple because he was fat and they wanted a fat man who could be executed with the stake. The Guru refused to reply. He said that he wanted to die before his disciple died. The king felt that there was some mystery behind it. The Guru wanted to die before his disciple and was so eager to die. There must be some reason behind it. "Will you promise me to put to death if I tell you?" asked the Guru. The king gave him his solemn word. The Guru took him aside out of the servant's earshot and whispered to him, "Do you know why we want to die right now? The two of us. We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. That stake is the stake of the God of justice. It's new. It has never had a criminal on it. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country." The king felt that there was some mystery behind it. The Guru wanted to die, but before his disciple and was eager to die. He tried to find out the reason. The Guru asked the king to promise him that he would execute him first if he told him the secret about why he wanted to be executed. The king promised that he would execute him first. Then the Guru took the king aside and slowly told him that they had roamed around the whole world but had not seen a city and a king like him. He added that the stake which they would use to kill the disciple was the stake of justice. As it was new, it had not killed any criminal. Further, he added that the one who would die first on this stake would be reborn as the king of the kingdom. By telling all this, he was simply trying to trap the king in his words. And whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember. The king was now thrown into deep thought. He did not want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He needed time, so he ordered the execution postponed to the next day and talked in secret with his minister. "This is not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in next life. Let us go on the stake ourselves and we will be reborn as king and minister again." "Holy men do not tell lies," he said, and the minister agreed. The one who would die next would be reborn as the minister of the kingdom. This was what was told to the king by the Guru. The Guru further added that he was tired of the life of a sannyasi. He and his disciple wanted to live the life of a king and a minister. So he says that the king execute him first so that he is born as a king, and after him his disciple be executed so that he is born as a minister. After listening to the Guru, the king was in deep thought. He did not want that in next life his kingdom be snatched away from him. He discussed this with his minister. The king told his minister that he did not want that in the next life his kingdom be taken away. He added that the person was a holy man and holy men did not speak lies. He says that they should die first so that they are reborn as king and minister of the kingdom. So he told the executioners, "We will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first. Then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake." That night, the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the Guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. The king told his executioners that he would send the criminals at night. First, they should execute the person who came first and then execute the second person. They should be careful on not make any mistake. At night, the king and his minister went to the prison where the Guru and his disciple were kept. They wore the clothes of the Guru and his disciple so that they resembled them. As it was told to the servants, they came and took them along and put them into the stake for execution. In this way, with his intelligence, the Guru was able to execute his foolish king and his foolish minister. When the dead bodies of the king and his minister were taken away to be thrown, the people trembled to see the dead bodies of their king and the minister. They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The city was in confusion. At night, they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people suddenly thought of the Guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave town unnoticed. "We need a king and a minister," said someone. Others agreed. They begged the Guru and the disciple to be the king and their minister. It didn't take many arguments to persuade the disciple, but it took longer to persuade the Guru. Everyone was trembling because the dead bodies were not of the Guru and his disciple. Instead, they were the bodies of the king and his minister. Everyone in the kingdom was mourning the death of the king and the minister. In the morning, some people thought of the Guru and his disciple and felt that they should go to them. As the Guru and his disciple were planning to leave the kingdom, the people stopped them. The people of the kingdom thought that they needed a king and a minister, so they requested the Guru and his disciple to be the new minister of the kingdom. The disciple agreed quickly, but it took some time to make the Guru agree upon this. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all old laws. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day, and you could get nothing for a dudu. It became like any other place. So the Guru decided to be the king of the kingdom, but on the condition that from then everyone would work in the day and sleep at night. Also, the cost of things would vary and not be one dudu for anything as was the system earlier. It would be like any other place where everything had different rates. Finally, the Guru converted the kingdom of fools into a normal kingdom.